Zara, al-Abi Jarrata and others whose names are recorded in the book entitled Amal ul-Amal. During the Ottoman period the great Shia scholar, Muhammad ibn Makki was martyred. He is more famous as the second martyr. His books are still taught in the religious universities of Najaf and Qom. 2. Jazar, the governor of Akka near Jebel Emil repeated the evils of Hajjaj. After killing Sheikh Nasif Nasser, the chief of the cities of Emil, he also arrested and put to death a number of ulama and chiefs, including the great scholar Sayyid Haibatuddin Musa, Sayyid Muhammad al-Shukr, Sheikh Muhammad Usali, Sheikh al-Qatan and other jurists and doctors. It is mentioned in Ayan Shia 3 that Sheikh Qatan was a great scholar and was well versed in the science of ancient medicine. Sheikh Qatan was a contemporary of Sheikh Nasif Nasser Wali, the head of the ulama of Jebel Emil. Ahmad Pasha arrested Sheikh Qatan along with the ulama and notables of Jebel Emil, imprisoned them in Akka, subjected him to severe torture, and killed him by pouring molten iron on his head. Jazar ransacked the libraries of Jebel Emil. There were 5,000 books in the library of Qatan, and for a whole week the public baths of Akka were heated by burning these books. Only those who fled could escape the tyranny of Jazar. During Jazar's time, many scholars of Jebel Emil fled away. One of them was a poet named Sheikh Ibrahim Yahya who took refuge in Damascus. He was always distressed on this account and narrated the atrocities of Jazar. Since he had been an eyewitness to the incidents, he gave a graphic account of those hardships, and his elegies really infuriate those who hear them. One of those elegies, a lengthy one, begins as follows. The time that passes consists of joy and sorrow, and when a brave man has to suffer loss, it is better for him to be patient. How distressing it is for us to see our city as a place chosen for the revelries of Pharaoh. They have no contact with the organization of justice, and there is a large army in their house to commit oppression. Revolution of time intruded upon our affairs and destroyed all splendor of life. Contrary to expectations, wherever you cast a glance you see the murdered, the fugitives, the plundered ones, and chained prisoners. Alas, we find so many scholars wounded in different cities by the vicissitudes of time, and the wounds sustained by them are incurable. These scholars have been imprisoned and subjected to great inconvenience, and it is a very serious matter that a scholar is not respected. Alas, there are many respectable persons who, when it was morning, the oppressors put chains around their necks. Talking about such tragic circumstances, Shibli Nomani has said, "Scholars of religion are being made to wear chains. These ornaments are from the inheritance of Sayyid Sajjad." 4. After witnessing this carnage, the wise became senseless. People became so confused that they lost their reason. Each of their wound is still bleeding. When I saw that oppression had been rampant and there were no prosperous people, I left the land where I was vexed, because it seldom happens that a person should live at a place and remain happy while his neighbor is like a serpent ready to bite. Rulership is for Allah only, but it has fallen into the hands of a criminal who does not distinguish between lawful acts from the unlawful ones. There is a criminal and adulterer, who says that he is a virtuous person. But it is to be regretted that it is not possible to deceive Allah, because He recognizes the criminals, and He is in ambush for such people. These verses are a historical proof of the crimes of Jazar and are beyond any doubt or suspicion. They narrate things which make one shiver. The atrocities of the Ottomans were not limited to the Arab cities and to the Shias. They ousted Shias from all small and large government departments. They restrained the Shias from performing their special religious duties and did not allow them to perform their religious acts in Syria and the localities in which their number was small. These hardships continued for 400 years 1516–1918 AD. 1. Khazri, Al-Balad ul-Arabiya wa Dalat ul-Uthmaniyya, pg.400, 1960 edition. 2. The first martyr was killed in 786 AH during the period of Barkuk, the first king of Jaraxa. Burhanuddin Maliki and Ibn Abd ibn Jamaat Shafi'i had alleged that the martyr considered lawful the things declared by religion to be unlawful, e.g. drinking of wine. So, he must be executed. He remained imprisoned in the fort of Damascus for a year and was then put to sword, and thereafter his body was impaled and burned. Author. The magnum opus of the first martyr is Luma. The second martyr, Zainuddin ibn Nuruddin, has written a gloss on Luma, called Shar Luma, which has included the syllabi of all the Shia seminaries today. According to the author of Lao Lao, during the Ottoman rule, the second martyr was arrested right opposite the Great Mosque of Mecca, and he was kept as a prisoner in a house in Mecca for 40 days. Then he was transferred to Constantinople and put to death. His body lied unburied for 3 days, and after that it was picked up and cast into the river. Kadi Noor al-Shushtari, who is known as the third martyr, was the chief justice of the kingdom during the Mughal period. Sheikh Ahmad Sirhindi Muhaddid al-Thani and other fanatical Sunni scholars issued a verdict against the third martyr. Among his writings, Mayalish al-Mu'minin and Akak ul-Haq have earned international renown. Due to his writing, the book of Akak ul-Haq, approximately 40 Sunni ulama issued the fatwa that Kadi Noor should be given 100 lashes, made to drink molten lead, his tongue should be pulled out from behind his head, and then he should be beheaded. When he was lashed, he passed away only on the 15th strike, and the remaining lashes were delivered to his corpse. After that, a hole was drilled behind his head and his tongue was pulled out. Molten lead was poured on his head, due to which the head was burnt, and the brain came out. Later his corpse was thrown on the garbage heap on the outskirts of Agra. 3. Volume 1, pg. 4. Referring to Imam Zain al-Abidin. Shares. The Saudi government and Shias. Now we are in the 20th century, the century of democracy. Hajjaj and Jazar are no longer in power. Today we can convey our opinions to the media, we praise humanitarian groups and condemn those who are not. We are free to adhere to our beliefs. We live in the world of telecommunication and information. Man is undertaking expeditions in space and attaching ladders to the moon. Scientists are making their utmost efforts to ensure health and comfort for man so that he may lead his entire life comfortably with regard to his food, his clothing, his shelter and his movement. But the Saudi government still wishes that the people should lead a nomadic life. It is interesting to note that the Saudis, like the present-day nomads, rode camels and drank their milk, prepared their clothes from their wool hair, and made their shoes out of their skins. They sat on the ground in their tents and were faced with thousands of hardships. The Saudis married only their cousins and other girls of their tribe. Now their life has changed and taken the present shape. Their wealth increased after the petroleum boom. The Saudi elites now live in magnificent Arabian night palaces, enjoy all sorts of luxuries and travel by huge, air-conditioned cars and aircraft. Every day is a festival for them. In short, a revolution has taken place in the lives of the Saudis. But all these are temporal. They have not yet forsaken the mentality of nomadism and ignorance. Their intellect and morals, civility, and social intercourse with different tribes and races are the same. There is no change in their outlook. There is a lack of broad-mindedness among them. They are still not having cordial relations with other communities and tribes, and they remain stuck to their ancient attitude. This statement makes one thing clear, and that is the lack of order between the materialism and the spirituality of the Saudi state. There should either be the desert and the camels or civilized life and thinking, because separating intellectual civilization from temporal civilization amounts to contradiction. It becomes clear from the following proofs that although the bodies of the Saudis are in Wall Street, 1. Their thoughts are centered in Rub al-Khali. 2. A well-informed friend narrated to me the following surprising facts about Saudi Arabia. 1. If a Shia is the plaintiff, his evidence is not accepted, but the evidence given by anybody against a Shia is accepted. Thus, a Shia has to pay damages but does not receive compensation if his rights are violated. Indeed, the hardship would have been lesser if both the evidence against him and in his favor had not been accepted totally. What is surprising is that they think that Shias are liars, and the evidence given by the Shias is inadmissible. They make it a condition that the witness should be righteous, and when his righteousness is proved, his evidence is also proved, although a nomad may give evidence against a townsman, whereas the Hanbalis say the evidence of a nomad against a townsman is not acceptable except when the nomad is a Najdi and the townsman is a non-Najdi. 3. While it is mentioned in traditions that Allah has declared That in the organization of the unjust, the evidence of his friends should not be accepted on any account. 2. In Saudi Arabia a government Sunni judge is provided, like other judges, with a courtroom, salary, carpet and writing materials. However, a Shia judge does not get any of these. He retains only the title of judge, although in Kuwait, Bahrain, Iraq and Lebanon, the Sunni and Shia judges enjoy equal privileges. This Saudi attitude can only be attributed to bigotry and nomadic thinking. 3. The best work Saudi Arabia performs is in respect to masjids and graveyards and their repairs and maintenance, on which the state spends large amounts of money. However, this is only for Sunni masjids. The masjids and graveyards of Shias do not get any such monetary benefit, although masjids and graveyards are undoubtedly for Allah, the Quran, and Islam. Would that the Saudi government had not rendered assistance, but at the same time not destroy the graveyards of Asa and the Al-Matira Masjid. The Shias had obtained a formal permission from the governor of Ibn Jaludi district and from the municipal committee to construct the masjid and constructed it on their own expense. But the Saudi authority cancelled the permission, and after the masjid was constructed, they announced, Allah will build a palace in paradise for one who removes a single brick of the masjid. Hearing this, the overzealous believers arrived with spades and shovels and razed the masjid in a just few moments. For the Saudi government does not allow import of books written by Shias, although they deal with religious, historical, literary, philosophical, and other similar subjects, and do not have the least connection with Saudi politics. Also, the Shia authors of Saudi Arabia are given vile treatment by the government. Their only offense is that they love the descendants of the Prophet of Allah, and that they do so in compliance with the command of Allah. There is no denying the fact that restraining a nation from acquiring education results in the restriction of its spiritual life. It is for this reason that most governments and universities publish books in various languages and attach special importance to this task. They also sponsor students and send them to distant places to acquire knowledge. It is shameful that the Israeli Hadassah printing press publishes these books in Arabic, whereas the Saudi government prohibits it. The Holy Prophet said, "Acquire knowledge even if it is found in China." Imam Ali says, "The most learned person is he who increases the knowledge of others with his own knowledge." The Jews and others like them act upon this Islamic and human reality, whereas the people who say that knowledge is restricted to the desert of Najd and especially to the Wahhabis, and more specifically, to their fanatic chiefs, consider all others to be infidels and only themselves to be true believers. This matter becomes clear by the incident of Ibrahim Pasha and the Wahhabi chiefs at the time of their entry into the city of Daraya. This incident will be narrated soon. Even if we suppose that knowledge is restricted to the desert areas and especially to the desert of Najd, why should religious books, dealing with Islam, be banned, while the entry of the books published by the colonialists be permitted? Why should obscene books be available behind the Saudi shop windows, whereas the books and periodicals of Mu'tahids be banned? Why are those books that teach the people anarchy, mischief, and infidelity, preventing them from understanding the needs of life and from achieving perfection, be allowed entry into Saudi Arabia? The Saudi government granted complete freedom to the magazine Riyat ul-Islam to abuse the imams of Muslims and descendants of the Holy Prophet. Why has it published a verdict that shedding blood of Shia, as is permissible? Why did they instigate people to oppress Shia Muslims, while they believe in Allah, His Prophet, and the Judgment Day? On the other hand, why does the Saudi government ban the entry of Al-Irfan magazine, which has been campaigning against colonialism and corruption for the last 50 years, when it has done great service to the nation, the Muslims, and the Arabic language? This magazine has remained neutral between East and West, and its contents and policies have always been based on reason. Al-Irfan supports the independence of Palestine and Algeria. 5. It rekindled the spirit of freedom amongst the people. It is widely circulated in Cuba, Congo, Laos, and Angola, but its entry into Saudi Arabia is prohibited. Is it not a matter of shame that the Shias of Bahrain are treated by the British there 1,000 times better than Shias of Asa and Qatif are by Saudis? Is not a shame for Islam that the Shias of Bahrain And Saudi Arabia should be treated differently. Are the Shias of Asa and Qatif not entitled to demand that they may also be granted the freedom to perform their religious duties like the Shias of Bahrain? Is it not a matter of shame that Shias are not be entitled to construct their masjids and graveyards and should not be allowed to read the books and periodicals of their choice? I have said this and cursed the colonial rulers of the East and the West and their agents. I also curse those who have obliged me to say these things. The descendants of Saud rule in the name of Islam 6 and they have written La ilaha illa Allah, Muhammadun Rasulullah 7 on their national flag in bold letters. However, their behavior towards the Shias contradicts Islamic teachings. 8. Though the Shias of Lebanon, Iraq, Iran etc. are aware of the matter, they have chosen to feign ignorance and they think that there are no Shias at all in Saudi Arabia. Of course, we should bring these to the attention of the people of the East and West and tell them how the Saudi regime has adopted discriminative policies against our brothers in faith. What has astonished us more is that the Wahhabis follow Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal and the sayings of Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab, and the latter says that the pillars of Islam are 5. First, 2. Acknowledge that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is his messenger. Second, prayers. Third, fasting in Ramadan. Fourth, Hajj, and fifth, Zakat. These pillars are the same which Shias believe. The Imamiyya scholars also say that one who abandons the performance any of these 5, while believing that it is allowed to omit them, is an infidel, and one who neglects, or lazy, about these things, is a sinner. And one who persists in this attitude and does not repent is liable for execution. The author of Al-Mughni 9 writes, one of the beliefs of the Khawarij is that they consider many companions of the Prophet and companions of companions to be infidels. They consider killing them and usurping their property to be lawful and believe that as a result of killing them they acquire proximity to Allah. Despite these beliefs of theirs, jurists do not consider them to be infidels, because it is argued that they performed ijtihad in what they say. On this basis, they are like those who consider Shias to be infidels and similar to the Khawarij, who consider some companions and companions of companions to be infidels and hold that their killing is lawful for the pleasure of Allah, and that though they are not infidels, they have certainly erred. Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab and Ibn Taymiyyah were also accused of heresy. Ibn Taymiyyah was imprisoned on account of his beliefs, and he died in prison. All al-Sunnah have said before, and they still say that the Wahhabi cult is heretical and has no connection with Islam. The views of Ibn Taymiyyah are contrary to those of the scholars of the Salaf, 10 the pre-Caliph 11 and post-Caliph after the 5th century, although he claimed himself to be the trustee of the Salafi Salihin. The ulama of al-Sunnah had rebutted the views of Ibn Taymiyyah and pronounced him to be an infidel. Wahhabism is based on the views of Ibn Taymiyyah and its followers are busy only in propagating his ideas. In the present age, the Saudi government is in the forefront in spreading the ideology of Ibn Taymiyyah and spends millions of riyals every year for this goal. Ibrahim Pasha. Like Shias, Wahhabis have also suffered persecutions because of their beliefs. They have also been killed. Pierre Curbitus writes in his book, Ibrahim Pasha 12. When Ibrahim Pasha defeated the Saudis, conquered their cities, and arrived in their capital Daraya, all Saudi commanders surrendered to him. He summoned the Wahhabi ulama, about 500 of them, and said to them, a delegation from among you will accompany me to Cairo and hold discussions with Sunni scholars to clarify the differences between your beliefs and those of the Sunnis. As ordered by Ibrahim, representatives of the two groups held discussions for 3 days and brought to light the differences between the two schools. During these 3 days, Ibrahim sat quietly and did not even go to sleep. On the 4th day he brought the discussion to an end and asked the head of the Wahhabis, do you believe that Allah is one and the true faith is one and that your faith is the only true one? The sheikh replied in the affirmative. Pasha said, you swine, what is your belief about paradise and its breadth? The sheikh replied, it is like the breadth of the sky and the earth, and it has been made ready for the virtuous. Ibrahim said, if paradise is so spacious, you and your followers will stay under the shade of one tree. Then what is the remaining area for, and why has Allah created such a big paradise? The sheikh and his followers cast down their heads in defeat. Ibrahim Pasha ordered his soldiers to cut off their heads. Followers of different religions pursue their religious obligations every time and in every place till an impediment emerges, and they have a special entity in the governmental organization. However, such a position does not exist in the Saudi government because, contrary to the expectations of Shias, who do not interfere with the affairs of the people and the policies of the state, they are prohibited from performing many of their religious rites. We all know that the policy of hatred, intrigue, and bloodshed is about to end, and the sun of freedom of opinion and faith is about to rise. Indeed, only that government, which is anxious for the well-being, security, and comfort of all the citizens of the state will survive. Someone has truly said that an illegitimate government is temporary whereas a true government lasts forever. 1. In New York. 2. The Rub' Khali is the sand desert encompassing most of the southern third of the Arabian Peninsula. The desert covers an area of some 650,000 square kilometers. Note of al-islam.org. 3. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal says, I am afraid of the fact that the testimony of a Bedouin should not be accepted against a villager. Mizan ash-Shirani, Chapter of Witnessing, Al-Mughni, Volume 9, pg. 67. Al-Mughni is a reliable book of the Hanbalis. 4. It is now 100 years. 5. It was during the War of Algerian Independence. After the Algerian independence from France in 1962, Ahmed Ben Bella became the first Prime Minister of Algeria. Alas, Palestine has still not gained independence from the clutches of the Jews. And it is attacked every day by Israel. But the Intifada movement of brave Palestinians still continues. 6. In order to propagate Wahhabism, they are sending millions of rials as donation and free Wahhabi literature to various Islamic organizations, mosques and madrasas all over the world. 7. Meaning, there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet. 8. Rida Aslan, the author of No God But God, writes in the chapter of An Awakening in the East. The facts of the alliance between Ibn Saud and Abd al-Wahhab have given way to legend. The two men first met as Abd al-Wahhab and his disciples were tearing through the Arabian Peninsula, demolishing tombs, cutting down sacred trees, and massacring any Muslim who did not accept their uncompromising, puritanical vision of Islam. They were expelled from an oasis where they had received shelter. The horrified villagers demanded that Abd al-Wahhab leave after he publicly stoned a woman to death. They later made their way towards the oasis of Daraya. Its sheikh, Muhammad ibn Saud, who was more than happy to give Abd al-Wahhab and his holy warriors his unconditional protection. This oasis is yours, Ibn Saud promised. Do not fear your enemies. Abd al-Wahhab replied with an unusual demand. I want you to grant me an oath, he said, that you will perform jihad against the unbelievers non-Wahhabi Muslims. In return you will be the leader of the Muslim community, and I will be the leader in religious matters. Ibn Saud agreed, and an alliance was formed that would not only alter the course of the Islamic history but would also change the geopolitical balance of the world. Abd al-Wahhab's holy warriors burst into the Hijaz, conquering Mecca and Medina, and expelling the Sharif. Once established in the holy cities, they set about destroying the tombs of the Prophet and his companions, including those pilgrimage sites that marked the birthplace of Muhammad and his family. They sacked the treasury of the Prophet's mosque in Medina and set fire to every book they could find, save the Quran. They banned music and flowers from the sacred cities and outlawed tobacco smoking and drinking of coffee. With death penalty, they forced the men to grow beards and the women to be veiled and secluded. The Wahhabis deliberately connected their movement with the first extremists in the Muslim world, the Kharijites, and like their fanatical predecessors, they focused their wrath inward against what they considered to be the failings of the Muslim community. Thus, with Hijaz firmly under their control, they marched north to spread the message to the Sufi and Shiite infidels. In 1802, on the holy day of Ashura, they scaled the walls of Karbala and massacred 2,000 Shiite worshippers as the latter were commemorating Muharram. In an uncontrolled rage, they smashed the tombs of Ali, Hussein, and the Imams, giving particular vent to their anger at the tomb of the Prophet's daughter, Fatima. With Karbala sacked, The Wahhabis turned north toward Mesopotamia and the heart of the Ottoman Empire. Only then did they get the attention of the Caliph. In 1818, the Egyptian Khedive, Muhammad Ali 1769–1849, at the behest of the Ottoman Caliph, sent a massive contingent of heavily armed soldiers into the peninsula. The Egyptian army easily overwhelmed the ill-equipped and poorly trained Wahhabis. Mecca and Medina were once again placed under the care of the Sharif, and the Wahhabis were forcefully sent back into the Najd. By the time the Egyptian troops withdrew, the Saudis had learned a valuable lesson. They could not take on the Ottoman Empire on their own. They needed a far stronger alliance than the one they had with the Wahhabis. The opportunity to form just such an alliance presented itself with the Anglo-Saudi Treaty in 1915. The British, who were eager to control the Persian Gulf, encouraged the Saudis to recapture the Arabian Peninsula from Ottoman control. 2. Assist them in their rebellion, the British provided regular shipments of weapons and money. Under the command of Ibn Saud's heir, Abd al-Aziz 1880–1953, the plan worked. At the close of the First World War, when the Ottoman Empire had been dismantled and the Caliphate abolished, Ibn Saud reconquered Mecca and Medina and once again expelled the Sharif. After publicly executing 40,000 men and reimposing Wahhabism over the entire population, Abd al-Aziz ibn Saud renamed the Arabian Peninsula the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The primitive tribe of the Najd and their fundamentalist allies had become the wardens of the sanctuary, the keepers of the keys. Almost immediately, the sacred land where Muhammad had received the gift of revelation miraculously burst forth with another gift from God. With abundant petroleum reserves, the tiny Saudi clan suddenly gained dominion over the world economy. They now felt it was up to them to respond to this blessing from God by spreading their puritanical doctrine to the rest of the world and purging the Muslim faith once and for all of its religious and ethnic diversity. The Muslim Brothers arrived in Saudi Arabia at an opportune time. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia remained the sole Muslim country in which the ulama had not lost their grip over the society. On the contrary, Saudi Arabia was both an utterly totalitarian and uncompromisingly Wahhabist state. Here there was no debate whatsoever between the modernists and the Islamists. Nationalism, pan-Arabism, pan-Islamism, Islamic socialism, none of these vibrant and influential movements in the Muslim world had a significant voice in the Saudi kingdom. The only doctrine that was tolerated was the Wahhabi doctrine. The only ideology is Islamic fundamentalism. Any deviation was violently suppressed. Hoping to curb Nasser's growing influence in the Muslim world, the Saudi monarchy opened its arms to the radicalized Muslim Brotherhood, not just to those who had been exiled from Egypt, but also those from other secular Arab states like Syria and Iraq. The Saudis offered all the money, support, and security that the group needed to fight back against secular nationalism in their home countries. But the Muslim Brothers discovered more than mere shelter in Saudi Arabia. They discovered Wahhabism, and they were not alone. Hundreds of thousands of poor workers from all over the Muslim world began pouring into Saudi Arabia to work the oil fields. By the time they returned to their homes, they were fully indoctrinated in Saudi religiosity. In the fall of 1996, a group of ethnic Pashtun religious students from the poorest, most conservative, and the least literate provinces of Afghanistan and Pakistan rolled uncontested into Kabul, hoisting their trademark white flag representing purity. The students stormed the United Nations compound where the Afghanistan's president was hiding, dragged him into the streets, pummeled him to death, and, at dawn, hung his bloated body from a lamp post. In this way, the Taliban made its fearsome presence known to the world. The Taliban first entered the global stage, along with a massive contingent of Muslim militants, known as the Mujahideen or those who wage jihad, from the Middle East, Far East, Central Asia, Southeast Asia, North Africa, and East Africa, who from 1982 to 1992 were recruited and armed by the CIA to take part in a jihadist insurrection against the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan. With Saudi funding, the Mujahideen were sent to Pakistan, where, with the assistance of Zia al-Haq's fundamentalist regime, they were trained in terror tactics and indoctrinated with a militant combination of Shah Waliullah's religiopolitical ideology and Wahhabism's radical Puritanism, all under the supervision of the then CIA chief William Casey. The United States had long considered Wahhabism to be an important ally in the great game being played out against godless communism. In fact, to solidify Saudi support, the United States encouraged wealthy Saudis with intimate ties to the government and royal family, like Osama ibn Laden, to finance and oversee the insurrection in Afghanistan. Called freedom fighters by the CIA, and compared to America's founding fathers by President Ronald Reagan, the combined force of the foreign Mujahideen fighters and the Afghani and Pakistani religious students forced the Soviet army to pull out of Afghanistan. They also ushered in the collapse of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War. Their mission in Afghanistan accomplished, the triumphant Mujahideen took their Pakistani training, their Saudi fundamentalism, and their American weapons back to their home countries in order to launch their own jihad in places like Palestine, Chechnya, Morocco, and Indonesia. The Taliban returned to their homes in the Pashtun regions near the Afghanistan-Pakistan border to continue their religious education. And Afghanistan, abandoned by a United States flushed with victory in the Cold War, was left in the hands of lawless warlords who ran the country like competing mafia gangs, killing, torturing, and raping indiscriminately in their quest for control. In 1992, when the Taliban decided to reunite under the leadership of their spiritual teacher, Mullah Omar, and retake Afghanistan, this time from the hands of the feuding warlords, they were again supported by the United States, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan. With the assistance of Pakistan's ISI Inter-Services Intelligence Agency, the Taliban secured their home region of Kandahar in 1993. 2 years later, they captured the Shiite city of Herat, and by 1996 they controlled the capital city of Kabul. With more than 3/4 of the country under their control, they then began a now infamous Wahhabization process throughout Afghanistan. All religious sites, Muslims, and non-Muslims alike, were destroyed like the Bamiyan and Mazar Sharif etc. Tobacco and coffee were outlawed. Men were compelled to grow beards and women were forced into seclusion. The country's substantial Shiite and Sufi populations were massacred. 9. Volume 8, pg. 132. 10. The term, Salaf, refers to the earliest few generations of the Muslims. Note of al-islam.org. 11. Caliph refers to the later generations that continued with the practices. Note of al-islam.org. 12. pg. 40, 1937 edition. Shares. Shias and colonialism. We always ask one another, why do Islamic countries lag behind other nations in the race for progress? What is the secret for advancement of America and Europe in the field of science and technology? We also ask, why is it that among all the Arab countries, Saudi Arabia lags behind in science and knowledge? We wonder all the more at its backwardness when we see that this country achieved independence earlier than other countries in this region and enjoys large number of Hajj pilgrim visitors every year. We cannot believe when we hear the Hajj pilgrims narrate that hungry and naked persons pursue them at every step. Why should we believe them? What happened to the oil wells that overflow in Dharan, Fawaz, Safena, and Rub Khali? Where goes the large wealth gained from Hajj pilgrims from all over the world? However, when we go through the 5th issue of Riyat al-Islam, dated 15th Rabi, al-Awwal, 1380 AH, we cease to wonder, because if you know the cause of something, you are not surprised about it anymore. This magazine, published in Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia, has made the cause clear. Indeed, some religious persons and journalists, who are the worst animals in the eye of Allah, can be seen in Saudi Arabia. Instead of improving the pitiable conditions of the millions of people living in a state of ignorance, poor health, and hunger, and instead of meeting the needs of the helpless inhabitants of Najd and Hijaz, who are exposed to the rigors of summer and winter, they make a show of the wealth of Saudi Arabs, who construct, amidst the nomadic huts of the nation, skyscrapers resembling those in Versailles and Kremlin. In this issue of Riyat al-Islam, an article by Ibrahim Jaban was published. In that article, he has pronounced Islamic sects to be heretical. He also attacked the leaders of religious sects and Mujahideen. 1. But he did not take the trouble to ask the government where the billions of dollars earned from black gold oil have gone to. Why did the Rockefeller brothers exercise so much influence in Saudi Arabia? Why are all the profits of oil deposited in the accounts of Wall Street, while the poor of the country are in greater need? Jobin has severely condemned the rector of Al-Azhar University, Sheikh Mahmoud Shaltut, and mentioned unbecoming words about the religious leaders of Muslims. We reproduce below some of his slanderous remarks and propose to refute them. Jobin says, "The difference between us and the Shias is about the principles of faith, and this difference is the root of all differences." Thus, the writer formally admits that he does not believe in Allah, the Prophet and the Judgment Day. Because these are fundamentals of Shia faith, i.e., Tawhid monotheism, Risalat prophethood and Qiyamah Judgment Day, these principles have been published in thousands of Shia books, and this belief is announced from the top of the minarets of Shia masjids by saying, "There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger." It is no wonder that Jobin is disgusted with this belief, because his predecessors who thought like him hated Imam Ali and condemned his beliefs, although his beliefs and religion were the same as those of his cousin, Muhammad, the seal of the prophets. Shias are real Muslims and believe Allah the Mighty and Sublime to be free from every defect. They do not subscribe to certain beliefs held by some sects of Muslims whom the Wahhabis consider to be the leaders of the Muslims. For instance, Shias do not say any of these. None of the acts of Allah is indecent, not even injustice, and he can throw the prophets into hell and send the polytheists to paradise. The length of Allah is equal to 7 spans of his own. Allah is made of flesh and blood. Allah wept so much on account of Noah's deluge that his eyes were injured, and the angels went to inquire about his health. Allah is like a handsome child. On Friday nights he mounts a donkey and arrives on earth and shouts from above the rooftops, "Is there anyone who wants to repent?" 2. Shias also do not ascribe things to the Holy Prophet which are against, contrary to the position and greatness of his prophethood. For example, that he continued to sleep till the time for his prayers lapsed, and that he made mistakes while offering prayers, or watched some Bedouin dancing, or listened to songs. 3. Jobin writes, "The Islam which Shias profess is nothing but an initiation of the deceptive Jews." 4. Yes. In Jobin's view, Shias are bad because they have not surrendered the lands to America, the real master of Israel and which brought it into existence. He dislikes the Shias because they do not provide funds and weapons to the Jews to massacre Muslims and oppress Palestine. 5. Shias do not give their land under the control of America so that they may establish a secret military base to support Israel. Shias did not fight against Algeria in collaboration with France. Jobin writes, "If we stand in need for political unity so that we may overthrow political colonialism, this aim does not necessitate that we place ourselves in the strait of religious colonialism and consider religion to be the means of unification, because the gaps can be filled in only when there are people by our side who share our objects and afflictions and persevere." The only object of Jobin is to obey the orders of the Aramco Oil Company, and he wishes that all Muslim nations from the east to the west should obey this company. Anyone who does not obey the orders of this company is expelled from the pale of Islam. If the object of the writer is not submission to Aramco, on what account has he accused the Shias of being infidels and heretics? Did not the Shias fight against the colonial British in Iraq in 1920, and were not thousands of them killed? Did they not campaign against the French in Lebanon, and consequently their houses were transformed into ruins? Did they not rise as one man against the attack on Port Said in 1956, and were not a number of them belonging to Najaf Ashraf etc. killed? 6. History bears witness to the fact that the Shias have always fought against crime, injustice, and despotism, and their literature and verses are replete with instances of campaigns against colonialism and despotism. Their books on jurisprudence and principles of faith have declared campaigns against the tyrants and the despotic rulers to be obligatory. Of course, the Shias do not hold the same belief as that held by Jobin and those in charge of Riot Al-Islam magazine, who say, "No matter how unjust the governors and the rulers may be, it is not permissible to rebel against them." 7. Jabin addresses Sheikh Shaltut, the rector of Al-Azhar University, saying, "Fear Allah and do not expose yourself and the Islamic countries to danger, for falsehood cannot be fought against with falsehood, and that religious hypocrisy cannot be eliminated by means of political hypocrisy." According to Jabin, Sheikh Shaltut is a liar and a hypocrite. His offense is that he has initiated the nation to fraternity and unity, so that Muslims may form a united front against colonial powers and manipulative businesses and protect their economy. Yet, he himself is a true believer, while his goal is to destroy the strength and divide the Muslims so that the ground may be prepared for the expansion of Marxism or Zionism, and that they will bring the Arab and Muslim countries under their sway. The object of Sheikh Shaltut is to bring Muslims closer to one another, and to achieve this end he had included the study of Shia jurisprudence in the syllabus of the Al-Azhar University. He did not do this for the sake of the Shias or to propagate the Shia faith, nor did he do this to attract the attention of Najaf or to develop friendship with the ulamas there. He did this for Al-Azhar, Islam, and the Muslims. Sheikh Shaltut took this decision because he possessed religious zeal and was sincere to the Muslims. However, Jabin has spoken for the sake of dollars and to sell the Islamic countries, and has cunningly adopted the method of creating religious differences. May Allah curse the hypocrites. Jabin writes, "A man like Sadiq, the liar of the Shi'as, and one who follows his methods and pays attention to him or considers to be correct all or some of the foolish narrations ascribed to Sadiq, the liar of the Shi'as, becomes an infidel, and it is obligatory to curse and persecute him. O Lord, subject to your curses and wrath the infidels who have become so impudent as to take liberties with your saints and the supporters of the religion and progeny of your prophet, and ascribe falsehood to them. O Lord, subject to your wrath the Aramco Company, the Zionist group, the colonial rulers and their supporters." If Jabin calls Imam Jafar as Sadiq a liar, God forbid, there is nothing surprising about it, because previously the great prophet of Islam was also accused falsely. The Holy Prophet used to ask the people of Mecca, "Say, there is no God but Allah, so that you may achieve salvation." Abu Lahab however threw stones at him and said, "Do not give ear to his words, he is a liar. Our time is like the time of the Holy Prophet, and Imam Jafar is Sadiq is like his grandfather, the Holy Prophet and Jabin is like Abu Lahab." Of course, the Almighty Allah has announced in the Holy Quran, "O Prophet, and if they reject you, so indeed were rejected before you messengers who came with clear arguments and scriptures and the illuminating book." 3. 184. Imam Jafar Sadiq disseminated the interpretations of the Holy Quran and the traditions of his grandfather with logical reasoning and proof. However, those who are the enemies of Allah and the Holy Quran say about him the same things, which they said about his grandfather. Ibn Hajar writes in his Sawaiq al-Murika, "The people quoted so many doctrinal matters from Imam Jafar as Sadiq that the caravan of knowledge carried them from place to place, and these branches of learning became well known in all the cities." Shahristani writes in his book, Al-Milal wa Nihal, "Imam Jafar Sadiq possessed vast knowledge in the fields of religion, literature, philosophy and piety. Abu Hanifa was asked, 'Who is the greatest jurist?' He replied, 'Imam Jafar is Sadiq.' A. Traditions quoted about the excellence, greatness and knowledge of Imam Jafar is Sadiq, and the services rendered by him are too many to be counted. His only offense in the eyes of the enemies of Allah and his Prophet is that his knowledge was based on the Holy Quran, and he always discussed matters relating to Islam. Hence, attacking him means attacking the Holy Quran, and refuting him amounts to refuting Islam." At the end of his article, Jabin writes, "The Wahhabi ulama should know that they can perform the Islamic mission only when they have removed the traits which bring them near to Islam." These lines inform us the secret intention of this dangerous writer. He wishes that the small number of Shias who have survived in Hijaz and Qatif should be eliminated. Hence, it is incumbent upon every Muslim, especially upon the Shia ulama, especially upon the honorable scholars of Najaf and Iran, to express their serious objections against this article, by whatever means possible, and protest against the management of the magazine and those who have allowed them to publish this article. They should call them to account as to why they allowed the publication of such venomous material. They should thus forestall the virulence of colonial Zionism and the plots of Marxism and Aramco, which are spreading falsehood and dissensions in the name of faith in Islam. I wrote to the scholars of Najaf and Qom and apprised them of the position, and they, no doubt, realized its significance and performed their duty. The ulama of Jebel Emil, in turn, wrote letters of protest to King Saud and also visited the Saudi embassy in Beirut and expressed their resentment in the dailies and religious meetings. This expression of aversion should continue till the respective Saudi authorities restrain the hands of the transgressors and take necessary steps to prevent the evil consequences of such acts. However, there is no denying the fact that Allah is with the righteous. 1. Fighters in holy wars. 2. A Wahhabi scholar asked me as to where from I had quoted these words. When I informed him as to the source, he said, "Although the writer of this book is a Sunni, he is not a Wahhabi and a Hanbali, we do not rely on him." I was, therefore, obliged to find out some other evidence. I then saw the above sentences in the book Risalat al-Aqadat al-Wasitiyah by Ibn Taymiyyah, who is considered by the Wahhabis to be worthy of attention. He writes, "Every night, when a part of it has passed, our Lord comes and says, 'Is there anyone who may make a request to me so that I may grant his request? Is there anyone who may ask me a question so that I may give him a reply? Is there anyone who may seek forgiveness so that Allah may forgive him?'" Then Ibn Taymiyyah writes, "This has been agreed to unanimously." In the same book he also writes, "People will be thrown into hell continuously and hell will say, 'This is not sufficient. Throw more.' Then Allah will put his leg into the hell and the hell will say, 'That will do. That will do.'" Then he writes, "This has been agreed to unanimously." Author. 3. The position of the Messenger of Allah is far higher than what we see in the most authentic history and hadith books of all al-Sunnah. These same calumnies are arrows in the quiver of the enemies of Islam that they continue to throw every now and then and keep on insulting Islam and the Prophet. Some examples of calumnies are as follows. Narrated Abu Hurairah, "The Prophet led us in the Zuhr prayer, offering only 2 rak'ats and then ended it with taslim, and went to a piece of wood in front of the mosque and placed his hand over it. Abu Bakr and Umar were also present among the people on that day but dared not talk to him about his incomplete prayer. And the hasty people went away, wondering whether the prayer has been shortened. Among the people, there was a man whom the Prophet used to call Dhul Yudain, the long-armed. He said, 'O Allah's Prophet, have you forgotten or has the prayer been shortened?' The Prophet said, 'Neither have I forgotten, nor has it been shortened.' They the people said, 'Surely, you have forgotten, O Allah's Apostle.' The Prophet said, 'Dhul Yudain has told the truth.'" Narrated Hisham, "The Prophet heard a man reciting the Quran in the mosque and said, 'May Allah bestow his mercy on him, as he has reminded me of such and such verses of such surah, which I missed modifying the verses.'" Sahih Bukhari, Kitab Fadhail al-Quran, Chap 33, Volume 2, pg. 193, published Bulaq, Egypt. Sahih Muslim, Kitab Salat al-Musafirin, Bab al-Amr by Tahid al-Quran. It is mentioned in Sahih Bukhari, Kitabu al-Idain, and Sahih Muslim, Kitab Salat al-Idain that Aisha says, "It was the day of Eid, and the black people were playing with shields and spears. So, either I requested the Prophet or he asked me whether I would like to watch the show. I replied in the affirmative. Then the Prophet made me stand behind him and my cheek was touching his cheek and he was saying, 'Carry on, O Bani Arfida,' till I got tired. The Prophet asked me, 'Are you satisfied? Is that sufficient for you?' I replied in the affirmative and he told me to leave." Narrated A.R. Rabi, the daughter of Muawi ibn Afra. "After the consummation of my marriage, the Prophet came and sat on my bed as far from me as you are sitting now, and our little girls started beating the tambourines and reciting elegiac verses mourning my father who had been killed in the Battle of Badr. One of them said, 'Among us is a prophet who knows what will happen tomorrow.' On that the Prophet said, 'Leave this saying and keep on saying the verses which you had been saying before.'" Sahih Bukhari, Volume 7, Kitabun Nikah, Bab Zarab Daf. Narrated Abdullah ibn Umar. One day when Zayd ibn Amr ibn Nufail passed by the Holy Prophet and Zayd ibn Haritha, The two of them were eating food. They invited Zayd also. Zayd said, "O nephew, I do not eat anything which you slaughter in the name of your stone idols. I eat none but those things on which Allah's name has been mentioned at the time of slaughtering." Said says that after that the Holy Prophet was never seen eating from that which had been sacrificed for the idols. Musnad Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Volume I, Trail No. 1648. Majma az-Zawaid, Volume 9, pg. 417. Sahih Bukhari, Kitab az-Zabaheh, Bab ma Ziba al-Nisab was Asnam, Volume 3. Previously scholars used to read such calumnies, but now these things have come out from the pages of Sahih Bukhari. Musnad Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Majma az-Zawaid, Sirah ibn Hisham and Sirah ibn Ishaq and presented in Rida, Aslan's book, No God But God, which is published in various languages and circulated all over the world, and even laymen are reading such things. It was, the chroniclers say, one of the hot days of Mecca when Muhammad and his childhood friend Ibn Haritha were returning from Taif. Muhammad accepted this explanation without comment and opened his bag of sacrificed meat. "Eat some of this food, O my uncle," he said. But Zayd reacted with disgust, "Nephew, this is a part of those sacrifices of yours which you offer to your idols, is it not?" Muhammad answered that it was. Zayd became indignant. "I never eat of this sacrificial meat and I want nothing to do with them," he cried. "I am not one to eat anything slaughtered for a deity other than God." The notion that a young pagan Muhammad could have been scolded for his idolatry by a Hanif flies in the face of traditional Muslim views regarding the Prophet's perpetual monotheistic integrity. Page 16. 4. Sheikh Abd al-Qadir Gilani. 470–561 The follower of Sheikh Junaid Baghdadi in Gnosticism and Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal in jurisprudence, is also Navam as Ghas al-Azam and Pirane-e Pir. He writes in his book, Ghaniyatut Talibin. Shobi says that whoever loved Rawafid Shias loved the Jews because the Jews believe that imamate is restricted only to the progeny of Dawood, and the Rawafid say that imamate is peculiar only to the descendants of Ali ibn Abi Talib. The Jews believe that jihad is prohibited till the advent of Masih Dajjal, and the Rawafid also say that jihad is prohibited till there is a call from the sky announcing the advent of Mahdi. 5. Because in 2007, Shias under the leadership of Sayyid Hassan Nasrullah inflicted a stunning defeat to Israel and won over the masses in the Islamic world, and made them fearless of America and its ward, Israel, and gave confidence to the Palestinians. 6. Did not the Shia scholars and public participate in the campaign against the British and in the formation of India and Pakistan? 7. Al-Mazahab al-Ilamiyya from Abu Huraira, pg 155, 1st edition. Shares. The Sufyani Book. Cairo, more than 30,000 scholars and students of theology discuss and memorize the Holy Quran and the traditions of the Holy Prophet at the Al-Azhar University. From there, its scholars go to other countries and cities and invite people to the truth, the advancement of Islam and the unity of Muslims. In Cairo, the scholars have protected the people from devilish acts against the religion and the country, and make efforts for their unity and close relationship, and call upon them to be honest and obedient to the government. Cairo is the center of the Arab population and considers itself to be the guardian of the Arabs and the Arab cities, and endeavors to ensure that every Arab should benefit from the spiritual and material strength of those speaking the same language. In Cairo, Asian and African nations hold meetings against military bases and aggressive pacts and take pains to eliminate racial differences and tribal prejudices. In Cairo they meet to find out ways and means to fight against what is opposed to freedom and the freedom movements in Islamic countries. In this very Cairo, a book entitled, Abu Sufyan Sheikh Alumwayan was published after the occupation of Palestine by Israel and the invasion of Port Said. Orientalists and colonial ambitions. The colonial rulers were not content with looting wealth and provisions, sucking the blood of the nations, monopolizing markets, killing nationalist sentiment, and destroying the willpower to defend national heritage. They have attacked all that is sacred in Islam, obstructed our faith and beliefs, and presented our history and culture as defective. The path was trodden by those treacherous persons who received training in the school of cunning and Deceit and undertook numerous efforts in drawing plans, plots and designs against various nations. The imperial powers have decided that before doing anything else they should stigmatize Islam and its history. They have decided to cast aspersions on the Quran, the Holy Prophet, and the Imams who are the fortress of the independence, freedom, and greatness of the Muslims. The first step they have taken in this regard is that they sent to the East certain individuals called Orientalists, and allocate special funds to them. They are sent ostensibly to study the language, history, and culture of the Arabs. In fact, these titles are meant to lull the nation to sleep, and their real object was to criticize and denounce Islam and to place the nations in disagreement with each other by creating hatred through their inauspicious and inhuman plans. Orientalists have carried out this great mission with a sincerity of purpose. They published hundreds of voluminous books and commented on the Holy Quran. They explained the verses of the Holy Quran, claiming that what they have said was based on scientific research and free discussions. These Orientalists have expressed their views on all aspects of the Holy Quran and have gone so far as to explain Huruf Muqatat. 1. They are of the view that Huruf Muqatat are codes to the names of some companions of the Prophet who had the Holy Quran with them. For example, Mim, M in the phrase, Alif Lam Mim, refer to Mughira ibn Shoba, and the letter, Sin, S in the phrase, Yaa Sin, S refers to Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, and the letter, Ha, H in the phrase, Kaf Ha Ya Ain Sa'd, refers to Abu Huraira, and the letter Nun, N in Surah Nun refers to Uthman, and these persons had learnt the Holy Quran by heart. The Orientalists say that the Holy Prophet used to compel the people to accept Islam, too, as mentioned in Surah Yunus. Will you then force men till they become believers? 10:99. They say that the Holy Prophet forcibly acquired Zainab ibnt Jahash, the wife of his slave, Zayd. They also say God forbid that the Holy Prophet Muhammad was misguided, because Allah says in the Holy Quran, "Did he not find thee wandering and direct thee?" 93:7. In this verse the Orientalists have translated the word, dalan, as being misled, although it actually means being astonished. In short, the Orientalists have imputed these absurd meanings to Islam and unsuccessfully tried to defame it. 3. How ridiculous that the enemies of Islam and of the Holy Prophet, who are ignorant of our religion and proud of themselves, should conduct research in our religious matters, and tell us all that is sacred for us, inform us about our history and teach us our culture. 4. After this, what will be the position of the companions of the Prophet, and of what use will the Islamic jurists and historians be? What will be the value of what the philosophers and scholars have said? Should we forget all of them and learn matters relating to our religion and civilization from the Orientalists? The Orientalists are so evil-minded that they say Muhammad acquired his teachings from Christians and Jews. They also say that Muhammad worshipped idols with the polytheists. They further say, when the Holy Prophet was helpless, he considered his religion to be the religion of mercy and did not resort to bloodshed and pillage. However, when he saw some muhajirs and ansars around him, and had acquired wealth and strength, he forgot his prophetic mission and indulged in bloodshed and plunder. We seek the refuge with Allah. These are the accusations made by Orientalists. However, Islam and the Holy Prophet of Islam possess so much strength that even if all jinns and human beings, the Orientalists and colonial powers join hands, they cannot succeed in their mission. Colonialism and Hapnavi. Since all Muslims have understood their plot, the Orientalists did not succeed. They, therefore, decided to achieve their object by other means and were on the lookout for agents who should apparently be Muslims and Arabs, and should be ready to sell the religion and the Arabs for the money provided by Satan. When the colonial ruler saw that Hapnavi was for sale, they were glad to secure his services for tampering with Islam. They instructed him to abuse the leaders of Islam and prescribed to him the lines along which this was to be done. Hapnavi published these plans of the colonial power in his book entitled Abu Sufyan, Sheikhu 1 al-Umayyan. These days the colonial powers, through its agents, are spending a huge amount to weaken the defense line of the Shi, that is the institution of Marja at the point of reference in religious law, because they have seen that it can become the source of a great revolution. Therefore, these agents have created such an atmosphere that the common people are straight away being affected by their propaganda. Sheikh Murtaza Ansari had already buried the Akbari ideology, spread by Mullah Amin Astarabadi, but efforts are being made to revive it. I am surprised at the one who cannot understand the basic point that during their respective times, the Holy Prophet and the Holy Imams, were sole points of reference Maharaja, and the matter of Taqlid following is only related to the period of the major occultation of the Imam of the age A.T.F.S. This view is like the lamps of one's vision. For some they are alight and for some, extinguished. An Urdu couplet. Colonialists are also trying to create a sect among Shias that believes in the divinity of Ali, as the British agent, Humphrey has admitted in his book, Ideal Colonialism. Vilification of Imam Ali, A. Hopnavi speaks ill of Imam Ali, though he was the first person to accept the invitation of Islam and sacrificed his life for its progress. It was he who cheerfully suffered hardships for supporting Islam. It was he who kept company with the Prophet from the advent of Islam and helped him with his sword and his tongue from the very first moment of revelation. It was he who stood firm like a mountain in the battle of Uhud, and drove away those who attacked the Holy Prophet, whereas some prominent companions had fled. In the battle of Ahzab, all Muslims were trembling with fear of Amr ibn Abd Wud, but Imam Ali's heart was stronger than steel. His strike at Amr ibn Abd Wud was so valuable that the Holy Prophet said, Ali's strike on the day of Khandaq 5 is superior to all the acts of worship of men and jinns. When Khaybar could not be conquered by others, the Holy Prophet gave the standard to Imam Ali, the friend of Allah and his Prophet, who won the battle for Allah and the Muslims. Imam Ali, also fought against the polytheists